My wife-to-be has a male friend that I utterly believe wants to break us apart. Let me start by saying that I deeply believe in true friendship between men and women, when there is no second intention or previous bonding between them. So, my partner-to-be has this male friend that they have tried to be a couple before and it didn't work out between them. So when we started dating, they spoke about literally all the previous relationships, except for this one. I came to realize that they were speaking with someone. One day that we were in the car, and by the corner of my eye, I saw them smiling for something he had written about. I asked them what was going on, and we had a discussion. I told them point blank, my issue is not with the ones you tell me about. The issue is with the ones you hide. We had our conversation and things calmed down. A few months down the road, they told me they were going out with their colleagues. But you know when you have that feeling that something's not right? Well, I spent a rough night, couldn't sleep, even if someone had given me a dose of ketamine. They arrived home around 2 a.m. I had finally been able to get some shut-eye. I woke up at 3 a.m. and their phone had just received a message. I saw and had the confirmation that they had gone out with him and were lying to my face. The following day I asked them with whom they had gone out, and they actually made me feel like I was mentally unstable to even consider that they were lying. The argument about this lasted about 3 to 4 days. Even their best friend said that they wouldn't understand what led them for that. On the message I read, it stated in between the lines that something happened. I love being with you. It always helps me to put things in perspective. After this point, I decided to read more and more of their conversation, and he just kept hitting on them. But he did it in a way that anyone who would read it out of context would say that I was crazy. So I decided to clone their WhatsApp. Was I wrong on doing that? The following week he invited them again, and they just said to him that they would not go out with him because they doubted they would be able to convince me they would have another dinner with the colleagues in such a short period. Argument gone, but he's still there hanging around. We were supposed to have married that summer, and the stuff he said, that the date was chosen just because it was their birthday so we would do a 2-on-1, that I had cast a spell on them. This part due to my religion, and the subtle hints and hitting on them carried on. Conversation between them kept going on and off from time to time, and then it became clear to me that every time we had an argument, it was immediately after they spoke with him. The guy disappeared from scene after a time, and then when all hell broke loose and our wedding was postponed, due to a bad business decision on my end, the guy resurfaced, telling them that they need to be calm, think things through, etc., etc. He vanished again for almost 3 months, kept popping up like that, until he told them he was going to be a dad. We had a hell of a fight on that time, and once again things calmed down. But every single time that person pops up, we either fight or they lose it with my kids. And because I want to hear it from their mouth, I tend to touch the dinner subject from time to time. They always said they would never cheat, and they keep on saying to this day they didn't ever cheat. So my question is, are they keeping him around as a backup? Is there anything badly sorted between them? Should I be worried? Oh, why are you subjecting yourself and your kids to this toxic relationship? You know she has lied and doesn't respect you. She's still involved with the guy she cheated with, and you're not listening to what she's trying to tell you. Let him have her and do better for yourself and your kids. Healthy relationships do not look like this. Leave now before things get worse. My parents only ever give advice, never help. This may come off as more of a rant, but here goes. I, 21 years old, am currently spending a gap year with my parents, and friction is beginning to rise. We love each other very much, but they constantly give generic advice or admonishments for any of my failures instead of actually helping me to learn, and they've been doing so since I was a kid. For context, my immediate family is somewhat small with only me, 21 years old, my brother, 25 years old, my mother, and my father. As a child, I was left to my own devices almost all the time. Both parents worked about 3-4 jobs each, and my brother was being taught violin every day by my mother. The whole family is artistic, with my brother and mother being musicians, and them plus my father all being theater kids. However, I'm a visual artist. As a result, I've always been a bit of a black sheep. Now that's not to say they weren't supportive, they were very much so. But when the family goes to your brother's recitals thrice a year, and only one parent ever comes to your gallery, it's a little isolating. On top of that, my parents are both extreme workaholics. They do extra work, writing, editing, brainstorming, and so forth, every waking moment, sometimes even while watching a movie. In fact, my family works for an opera company every single summer since before I was born. And because I'm family, I'm voluntold to help with the work, either by acting or building. Every summer since I was born, I have spent 9 a.m., 11 p.m. working in a theater for 6 weeks out of 10. The one time I actually got a vacation was when the lockdowns hit, ironically. I've been raised extremely hands-off for my whole life, with the only real parental help or advice happening when I directly ask for it. Now, while this sounds reasonable, it doesn't really work for a lonely teen trying to figure out his own skills as an adult. However, once my brother moved out, all the attention and energy they were putting into his musical career and well-being got cut off, so they tried to lump it onto me without adjusting their strategy. And when I couldn't take it like he could because I was completely unused to it, they started alternating between hands-off and half-hearted guidance. Now, every time I struggle with a skill they didn't take the time to actually sit down and teach me, they look at me like I'm some bumbling child and give me a generic piece of advice or admonishment, instead of actually sitting down and helping me to develop that skill. I love my parents very much and usually get along with them quite well, and vice versa. And I know they feel the same way, but the way they treat me struggling with something is really starting to grind my gears. Any advice? If you feel your parents aren't teaching you skills they should have, you can either directly ask them to teach you or do the adulting and figure it out for yourself by looking up how to do it, or booking an advising appointment, or whatever is applicable to whatever skills you're having trouble with. Am I the antagonist for being absolutely fed up with my son? My 62-year-old daughter, our only child, currently still lives with us, her parents, at home. She graduated back in 2020 with a degree in neuroscience, and initially her plan, really her dream, was always to attend medical school and become a doctor. Her father and I have always been supportive of her mission and never once forced her into a career path she didn't want. She has been living at home since graduating in 2020. Initially, the plan was to take her medical school entrance exam in early 2021, then apply the summer after in May of 2022. But as of today, she still has not taken the entrance exam. Her friends are moving on into relatively stable careers, and acquaintances of ours have kids her age who have already begun medical residency training after the 4 years of medical school, whereas my daughter has not even applied to medical school yet. She has delayed this exam countless times claiming she's not ready, but I know for a fact, and she has admitted this to us, that she is just not studying at all and being extremely unmotivated and lazy when it comes to the big exam for her application. Since graduating, she had a part-time job from September 2021, April 2022, $18 an hour. Nothing fantastic, but it was part-time so she could study. She didn't. Mom, Dad, I'll take it on EX day. Date comes, she postpones the exam and doesn't take the exam. This cycle has been continuous. Now since last July, 2023, she has been working full-time in a lab, making $20 an hour trying to save money. Both jobs will be good for her application, as did some of the volunteering research she did since graduating and before then, but the medical schools will simply not consider her at all without that exam. She can't apply without it, and she has not attempted it once. My husband, 61, and I gave her an ultimatum tonight. If she does not take the exam this May as she promised us to do this January, we have already lost trust in her ability to stay true to her test dates and commitments. She needs to find something else to do and completely give up on this medical path. It is time to move on. We are getting older. She is getting older. We think she just needs to finally find her path in life already. She's 26 and we are absolutely fed up and sick of the whole thing. We've even been trying to stay quiet at home and haven't even gone out to eat since the pandemic, all in the name of giving her time to study, which she hasn't. So if you all want the truth of what this looks like, imagine life in early 2020 lockdown times 4 years. Am I the antagonist for giving my daughter that ultimatum as sternly and loudly as possible with her father tonight? I need perspective. You haven't gone out to eat in years because your son hasn't been studying? Why can't you even go out to eat in the name of giving him time to study? That makes no sense. Am I the antagonist for refusing to sell my car in order to move in with my partner? I, 24 years old male, just secured a pretty much dream job right out of university, and my partner, 25 years old female, of 2 years recently suggested the idea of moving in together into a new house. I agreed with her that it was a great idea. She does rent at the moment, but I still live with my mother, so I want my own place anyway. I went over to her house a few days ago to discuss it over lunch, and right near the end of the chat, she casually mentions that I'd need to sell my current car and get something different if we wanted this to work. Now to be clear, and she knows all of the following: I love cars, and I adore my current car. 2001 Citroën XSR of FTs 167. I love pretty much everything about it. I've owned the car for almost 5 years, and it was actually my first car. Regardless of that, I have a kind of unbreakable bond with it. To me, it isn't just a car, it is a friend. The only time I don't drive it to wherever I'm going is if it's in the middle of having something important repaired. Anyway, when she said that, I got pretty confused. I knew why she said it. She doesn't know how to drive a manual, so she expects me to sell the car and buy an automatic as my car, so she can drive it in emergencies. I asked her why, and sure enough, I was right, so I explained my point of view to her, about how I love my little Xera more than anything, and how she should know that by now. I said it's like asking me to get rid of a dog because she's scared of dogs, and how her logic doesn't really make sense because I drive the car everywhere anyway. I tried to be as neutral as I could, but even so, she was a bit sour to me about this. She said I should grow up, and not see an inanimate object as anything more than an object. She then said I need to move on from the memories of my youth, and that I'm not a teenager anymore, so I shouldn't be driving a cheap-looking manual transmission car to such a well-paying job, especially not a F-King Citroën, her words. I kind of didn't realize what she said, so I said, well, if it's such a problem, why don't I just teach you how to drive it? She then changed direction, saying, it's not even about that anymore. I just don't understand why you're okay with the idea of driving that to such a prestigious job. I told her that I can drive what I want and reiterated that I love my Xara, and I wouldn't give it up just to look better in the eyes of the people I work for. She then said something like, "I don't understand how you care so much about a F-king car." I just sighed, got up, thanked her for lunch, and said, "I'm gonna go now, but we should end that argument there. I'm not getting rid of it. There's no point in me trying to explain it to you. I'll see you later." I then turned around and left. In conclusion, she's still pretty pissed at me and hasn't really responded much to my texts. So am I the asshole? Not the antagonist unless you sell the car and move in with her, in which case she'll know she has control. Honestly, it's a strange hill for her to die on, and it seems like an "if you love me, you'll do this" situation. At the end of the day, you should never have to give up something that's important to you for someone else, especially if it's just an inanimate object. The fact that she dislikes the car so much is very odd, especially since it looks perfectly fine. Stay true to yourself and your values. Good luck, op. I found weird searches on my husband's phone. My husband and I have been together almost 6 years, married for 4 months now. This started when we were driving over the holidays, and he asked me to look up directions on his phone. I pulled down the Siri search to look up maps, and there was a search for OnlyFans. This is a discussed deal breaker for us. We had a very long discussion about it where he swears up and down he wasn't searching for OnlyFans. I found out it wasn't an application, so I agree it was a weird place to search for OnlyFans. He was very adamant about having no interest in that type of thing. When I type O in my Siri search, the first thing that pops up is OnlyFans, so I can see how possibly it was a butt dial situation. I dropped it, but obviously it was weighing on me a bit. So 2 nights ago, I was asleep on the couch. I stirred and woke up and looked over at my husband's phone and swore he was typing a message, but I couldn't tell what application it was, possibly Snapchat. But when he heard me move, he switched apps to Reddit where he was looking at woodworking. I want to say that I had fallen asleep with my contacts in, and very well could have mistaken what I saw because it was blurry and I was half awake. I asked what he was doing and he said looking at Reddit. I said I saw you messaging someone, and he got a little angry and said I was not. I dropped it and went to bed. I started getting anxiety about it the next morning, and we ended up getting into a fight over text while we were at work. I ended up realizing it was absolutely crazy to assume that he was scrolling out of a message, and that meant he was doing something wrong. Last night we discussed it, and he swore he wasn't hiding anything from me, and it turned into him getting upset about not trusting him. So this morning, after I promised to be more trusting and not jump to conclusions, I did the wrong thing and looked at his phone while he was in the shower, after I saw a Reddit comment that said to look at battery usage to see which applications they are using the most to find out if someone is lying. Found nothing until I scrolled again to Siri search and found a search for Hinge. My heart immediately stopped. The weird thing is that there is not a download for the application, it's just a search. I'm scared to bring this up after our discussion about me being trustful, and I know I am wrong for going through his phone. I'm wondering if anyone has any idea why outside of downloading the application there would be a search for Hinge on my husband's phone? Have you tried checking the App Store to see if the apps have been downloaded before? He might be downloading and deleting them. It's possible that he was just searching for a Hinge for his woodworking project. Sometimes phones like Siri can come up with odd suggestions even if you haven't been using it. Confronted husband on if he's having an affair and he asked for a divorce. I'm 34 years old. Husband is 35 years old. We have 2 kids, a 5-year-old girl and a 3-year-old boy. The last 12 hours feel like they didn't happen, and I feel like I'm in shock. I suspected my husband was having an affair. I made a Reddit post about it earlier today, deleted my account after receiving all of the advice. I checked his phone and found basically nothing except one logged out of Instagram account that I'd never seen before, and barely any following or followers. And in screen time it said he had been on Instagram for hours every day, when I thought he barely used it. After that I was planning on hiding a camera in our house just to see. But I walked into my room and saw him typing away on his phone, and I just immediately demanded to see it and who he was texting. He didn't show me and just stared at me. I know my face gave it all away. He put it away, shut our bedroom door, and told me that he had planned on waiting a bit longer and that he's sorry, but he wants a divorce. He wouldn't give me a specific reason why other than he thinks it's needed and wouldn't admit he's having an affair. He just stayed quiet. I went into the bathroom for a bit, and when I came out he said he was going to leave tonight, but that he'd be back early tomorrow morning to wake up our kids and drop them off at school so they didn't think anything was off, and then we can talk more about next steps, and that he'd like us to have 50-50 custody of them, but that he thought it would be best if I had found a place to stay by the end of the weekend. And he even offered to help me find a place and suggested my sister, and said that if I want him out of the house until Sunday night, that's fine. He owns our house outright. My name isn't on it, so I'm pretty sure he can just boot me out. I know I need to talk to a lawyer, but I don't know where to start. I've Googled, but just can't make sense of it all. And I want to know where he is, but he's turned off. Find my friend so I know he's with her. And I know that I need to be so careful with our kids. I thought about just taking them and going to my sister's, but I think that would be a bad look. He's primary caregiver and a stay-at-home dad, and I don't want to have custody turn into a fight because I think I'd lose unless I could get proof of his affair. I still haven't told my friends or my sister or parents, and I don't know how, and my poor babies are so little and are going to be so confused. I cannot believe this is happening. I can't believe how calm and cold he was about the whole thing. He won't admit to an affair because he taught his AP as a child, making him a creep. Don't leave until you get legal advice, as the marital home entitles you to half if improvements were paid for. Do not leave your family home. Consult with a lawyer to understand your rights and options. If you don't have an income, the court can order him to pay for one for you. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist in the description.